Good Friday morning and welcome to Counterpoints. I'm Ryan Grimm. I'm here with Emily Jashinsky. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning, Ryan.
All right, so we got a quick update. Last week, we told people that we were thinking about adding some intro music, which is the thing that a lot of viewers have been asking for. I guess they want to get a little more hyped up than I get them at the beginning of the show. They need something to really get them. And so
your voice is very sort of lyrical.
It's like, lyrical is a nice way of putting it. And so we were blown away by the amount of music that we were sent. So many of you are musicians yourselves, have written music. People sent us things they'd already composed and said, here, you can use these if you want.
And you're really good, too.
You guys are good.
You
guys are good.
You sent really good stuff.
And other people said they're going to work on stuff and send it in. So we're going to have something fun. I also did follow up with Fish.
Oh, good. That's right. Yeah, he actually emailed Fish.
Yeah, I emailed Fish. Fish said that the problem with Tweezer and Tweezer Reprise is that Warner Music owns some of the rights, and so that's difficult. But they own almost all of their live music rights. So if we want something live, that's still an option.
It's
but
doable.
I think so many people submitted music so that we don't do that.
That's what it was. The influx was just.
Although there were plenty of people that were like, something like that could work.
Plenty?
So, plenty.
Define
plenty.
plenty.
Lots. I got lots of positive feedback on that. I'm going to say that.
Good. Well, Fish Nation is strong.
The Fish Nation, we're everywhere. And so at the beginning of every week here, there are just a couple of stories that we really want to dive into. And then by the time the show comes around, so much news has broken. We get a packed show. We have another packed show this week. A bunch of new news broke last night that we're going to get to later in the show. We're also going to talk about the hot inflation numbers that came out. Matt Stoller and Dave Dayen are both going to be here later in the show to talk about that. What else are we going to talk about today?
We've got so much on the docket. We're going to be talking about everything that happened with PayPal this week. We're talking about the midterms because there were a series of debates this week that went in some really interesting directions, and we have some sound bites from that we're going to go over. The new Elon Musk news. It sounds like there's
getting investigated.
There's Elon Musk news every single day, but yes, that's the new information we have. There's also new information about Donald Trump's bid to appoint a special master in the Mar-a-Lago document case. And then both of us are going to tackle, you're tackling Ukraine in yours, and I'm tackling January 6th in my monologue. So we've got a really packed show. And like you said, we have editorial calls Thursday afternoons, and all the news, of course, breaks after that. So we're just like trying to squeeze it all in here. And we can start right now with PayPal.
Right. So let's start with a story that really, I think, is one of the first that is really breaking through the partisan molds that our politics have been stuck in. And this is Rohit Chopra, who I think is a fascinating and dynamic figure throughout the course of his career. He's now the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I think if you are a right-winger, you should not sleep on this guy on a number of fronts. He's not going to agree with you on everything, but take a listen to what he said on CNBC yesterday or this week and see if any of this resonates with you.
I've never actually heard of a payment system thinking that they could find someone for legal expression that their users are making. We have ordered all the big tech, most of the major big tech firms and payment companies to provide us with information about how are they making decisions about who they kick off their platforms. But we also need to look into whether they believe they can be fining users for legal activities.
So Chopra is responding to a PayPal notice that went out saying people would be fined $2,500. It would just be taken from their PayPal account if they are posting messages that include misinformation, that sort of broadly defined misinformation. They then revoked the policy, said that it was issued in error. I think it's pretty startling that it was...
So they should pay $2,500.
They should pay $2,500 right out of the bank account.
Do not pass go.
Do you think they bank with PayPal?
No, but J.P. Morgan, whoever they bank with, should just take $2,500.
Right, and so this is what's interesting here is that you typically don't have the left, right? One of the biggest concerns of conservatives in the Trump era was exactly that they would start to be getting depersoned, right, as it's called. You know, they get debanked, they get de-interneted. You cannot have a presence, you cannot access the infrastructure of the 21st century that you need to live and bank and eat and exist and all of that stuff. This is interesting because it's the left expressing concern, as it should. What's always been terrifying is the left saying, you know, kind of the ends justify the means, right? That people are now so dangerous for having different opinions that then get classified as misinformation, that yes, we are taking you off of Google ad platforms, which is essentially a monopoly, or we are revoking your ability to sell this book that's critical of sort of trans ideology on Amazon, and we're just going to keep going down the list. Operation Choke Point.
Right, yeah. And you would have liberals who would defend that approach, and they would say, well, look, this is a private company. They can do what they want. And if you don't want to have your $2,500 taken from you, then don't spread misinformation online. Like that.
And agree with us, right? So publicly agree with us. Otherwise, we will classify what you say as misinformation.
Right, and what's critical here is that Chopra, who has actual power, those are people on Twitter. And Facebook, actually.
Well, the people who run Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah. But Chopra has real power as the head of the CFPB. And so his emphasis, I think, on the word legal and focusing on legal versus illegal, he's like, on what grounds does PayPal believe that it can come after a user for legal behavior that isn't even on their platform? And his clear answer is they cannot. And so he's pushing, he said, all of these different big tech platforms. And there's not just the principle here that I think that Chopra and others who are part of kind of his kind of antitrust and kind of corporate skeptical ecosystem on the left. There's also an end goal here, which is to say, no, you don't make these decisions. The people make these decisions, and the people make these decisions through their representatives. And representatives write the laws. So if there's a law written that is constitutional that you have violated, then there are consequences. Like that's a criminal justice system. That's a system that is based in, one person, one vote, representative democracy. We're not going to have a system where somebody has unchecked power, unchecked private power, and is just going to use it against somebody that they don't like. And I think good for Chopra for standing up for people whose politics he doesn't agree with.
Right. And people who in many cases are actually disenfranchised, marginalized, extremely low income in situations that are that's disproportionately people who are going to end up getting fined for misinformation and disinformation. And it's not to say it's only going to affect, the sort of poor rural Trump voter, but it is going to affect people like that way more than it's going to affect the people who generally CFPB officials are interacting with, who happen to love Joe Biden or whomever else, whatever it is. And Operation Choke Point, I think, was really the first part of this, which is basically that we're looking into purchases, or for instance, banks not allowing you to buy firearms with their credit cards. This is where a lot of the fears started bubbling to the surface, because it does generally violate the precedent that we have in this country, that it's like, if you are a bank, if you are, PayPal, if you are whatever it is, you have that line, right? You are, if people are doing things that are illegal, as a private company, it is not in your business interest, and it is not sort of in your ethical interest to prevent people from conducting legal activity based on partisan ideology or just ideology in general. That then cascaded into moves we saw from social media companies, and this is why when Jim Jordan says that Lina Khan is a Marxist, and Lina Khan, shouldn't be
FTC chair, who's an ally of Rohit Chopra.
Yes, the FTC chair, Lina Khan, conservatives shouldn't be empowering Lina Khan to break up tech companies through the FTC, and shouldn't be giving her more sort of ammunition to take that on because she's a Marxist. It's like, allegedly she's played footsie with Marxists, as some people might say, which is ridiculous.
She spoke to a student group.
She spoke to a student group.
Has most student groups nowadays have some socialist kind of,
she's on the left. I mean, there's no question about it. She's progressive. In the same way Rohit Chopra is a progressive. And it's an extremely positive sign, and I think that's why we're talking about this, that a progressive has an actual sort of old school ACLU approach to civil liberties.
Right, and speech and open platforms have become coded as right, which is awful and is not headed in a good direction. So it's good to see people who are on the left trying to pull that back. I'm curious, and they're going to then tussle with people on the left. Some liberals who are going to say, no, free speech is just, it's just a stalking horse for, white nationalism or whatever. So that's the problem that the left is going to have to sort out. The right is going to have to compete with the kind of Reaganomics folks, like the right-wing folks who are going to say, whoa, where is this heading? Now you're going to allow the government to tell a major company like PayPal how it can run its business. People who, for me, populists, people who believe in kind of people-powered government would say, yes, of course. Like everything is, all power derives from the consent of the governed. So yes, of course, if we don't like PayPal doing something, like taking $2,500 from people, then we're going to tell them not to do that. Like that's what a democracy is. But on the right, they say, so there is a libertarian strain over there that gets very nervous about this kind of thing. So how is that shaking out?
Yeah, they would say in a free market, that's how we determine these things, right?
Oh, just
so
have
in a
another
democracy,
PayPal.
this is how we determine these things, and then
Build your own PayPal, and then you build it and they shut it down.
Well, and this
Amazon
question
shuts it down.
And you're right to focus on Rohit Chopra talking about whether this is legal, because I actually think that's an open question. Whether it's legal for PayPal to conduct its business in this way.
Well, spreading misinformation is legal. Was his point. They're punishing a person for legal behavior.
Legal behavior, right.
You might find it unethical or immoral or wrong, but it's not illegal.
And there's a question of whether PayPal...
It's like according to PayPal, you stayed at the bar till 2. It was open till 2, but that was too late. You should have been home earlier. We're taking $2,500.
We're joking about that, but once you sort of give that power over and it goes into different directions, and you have the awfully divided Trump era that we've been living in, the mind sort of boggles at the possibilities.
Or you have people tracking periods and
That's right.
asking like, is this a miscarriage?
Well,
did you get an abortion?
You stayed at the bar till 2 a.m. and then did X, Y, and Z, and the government, they buy the data from the company and use it in a trial against you, whatever it is. Or it just it snowballs.
Dystopian.
Yeah,
stop it.
Absolutely dystopian. It's absolutely being sort of worked out on the right, but I think because the right was victimized by this before the sort of contemporary left was, I guess, old school free marketeers were really, I think, had a chilling experience.
Put on their back foot,
Yeah, and that's why you hear a lot of talk about common carrier framework, applying common carrier framework to actual common carriers like banks,
PayPal.
Well, not so much banks, but like tech
let's
companies.
do banks. Nationalize the banks.
Nationalize
and that's their problem. They're worried that it gets to that place.
Yeah. And they're actually
which is where it should go.
Building up conservative internet companies right now for fear of this. But when the left can sort of break that, it's really been hard for the left to weigh in, because the risk has not been worth the reward of speaking out like Rohit Chopra did, because the risk is that you then get piled on and say you're emboldening white nationalism and white supremacy, whereas the reward would be some retweets from conservatives. And John Schweppe, speaking of which, at the American Principles Project, we have this element A2. He's saying, this is a big opportunity. Rohit Chopra sort of breaking this mold. This is John Schweppe at the American Principles Project. He says, we have a major opportunity for bipartisan cooperation on protecting consumers from PayPal and other big tech payment processors. Common carriage with significant oversight seems to be the way to go. So let me just say that again, significant oversight. And that's coming from John, who does really good work over at the American Principles Project. And you do hear a lot of that from conservatives. And I do think it has busted through kind of the typical free market dogma consensus, at least in the conservative movement. Whether that translates into Republican policy is a different question, as is the question of whether it translates into democratic policy from regulators and lawmakers.
Yeah, done. Common carrier. Strong regulation. Let's do it. It reminds me. I was on CNBC a couple years to 2017 to talk about scoop about Steve Bannon wanting to make Facebook and some others a utility.
Right.
And they started challenging me to defend it. I'm like, this is his idea, but okay, if you want me to defend it,
let's do it.
Here it is. The CNBC lady's like, I'm not even on Facebook. You don't have to be on Facebook. So why does it need to be a utility? I was like, look, I drank well water growing up. It doesn't mean we don't have a water utility. Get out of here.
I don't drink water.
I'll find that old video and share it.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.